The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we talk about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
The other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
I say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Come on.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It is March 5, 2026, the 5th of March. It is a Thursday, and Idaho Signal is on the air. My name is Matt Edwards. I thank you for joining us today. I'm going to try and temper my temper. I'm going to try, but it's been a little hard this week as we watch the illegal immigration, trying to tackle illegal immigration in our state, in our country, and watching the backlash or the sort of reactions that we're getting from the old guard, from the old Republican guard that just can't seem to get their facts straight, and they can't seem to want to be honest with us. And that's what it really comes down to. I hate liars. I hate people that just knowingly lie. And I'm getting really frustrated in not calling I'm getting really frustrated in trying to keep my temper down and not just flat out calling them liars. But it's getting very hard to do that, because what they are doing is they are spinning a narrative that can't be true. It can't be true. You can't on one side say that you are not knowingly hiring illegal aliens, and then on the same argument, within the same breath, say that if we institute E-Verify, if we check employers' records and make sure they're not hiring illegals, if we do those things, that we're going to lose, half or more of our workforce and Idaho's economy will crumble. Well, which is it? Which is it? Is our entire industry propped up by illegal labor, or is it not? Because if it is, then you've been breaking the law, and you knew that this day was coming. Okay, so we've got a lot to show you. And the day was announced yesterday in an article by Revolver News. DHS just told the IRS to sit down because they're taking over investigating employers and illegals. Folks, this is the article, Revolver. We'll link to it in the show notes afterwards. DHS is reportedly bypassing the IRS and using its own investigative team to dig into the relationship between employers and illegal workers. This is in the article. It also goes on to say that if this goes down as planned, it will be a major shift in anti-illegal immigration strategy. The article says, we've always been focused on the illegals themselves, while employers, who are the real engine behind illegal immigration, have been humming along. And that's so true. That's what we keep hearing. That's what we keep hearing on the floor of the House, in the committees, in the Senate, and in the House of our own state here. If employers know the government isn't serious about enforcement, the system keeps plugging along. Let me repeat that. If employers know the government isn't serious about enforcement, the system keeps plugging along. We're going to show you some clips today. You've probably already seen them in various places, but what I want to focus on is this doublespeak that's going on, because they keep saying that, oh, this is the federal government's problem. It's not the employer's responsibility to make sure that people are here illegally or not. It's not their responsibility. They follow the law. They grab the documentation. They take the I-9 forms. They check the documents. They don't verify them. They don't send them into the federal system to see if the information is correct, if they're not stealing identities. Sure, we've all heard the system isn't perfect, but it certainly does work in other places. The federal government uses it so that they make sure that they're not hiring illegal aliens. So don't talk to me about the one-offs, okay? If it didn't work, then why are you fighting it so strongly? But that is the key right there. The government isn't serious about enforcement. So it looks like, according to this article, that DHS, Kristi Noem and her folks over there, are saying, you know what? We're going to go after the employers because they're doing something illegal. The article then goes on to say that illegal labor is a massive fraud problem. It's an identity theft problem. It's an what do you call it? I lost my place here. It's an economic problem that hits Americans hard. Who wants to wake up one day and find that their Social Security numbers were attached to jobs they never worked for? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then finally, near the end of the article here, if DHS is shifting toward direct investigations of illegal employment networks, the focus will move away from the workers and straight toward the companies. And if that happens, you will see change happen so fast it'll make your head spin. That's right, folks. That's right. And they know it. They absolutely know it. So I encourage you to read this article. This is a great sign here. This is exactly what I voted for. This is what we need to do. And to all of the employers out there, and to all of the lobbyists and all the folks in these different associations, Association of Farms, the Association of Construction Workers, the Association of Dairies, the Association of Sugar Beets, the Association, whatever it is, you have already admitted that your entire multi-generation, apparently, of your business has been propped up by illegal labor. But yet you refuse to do anything about it. And you say, oh, we have to wait for the federal government to do about it. Well, guess what? FAFO, folks, they're coming. They're coming. The feds are coming. Thank God the feds are coming. I thought I'd never say that in my life. But that's the reality of the situation. It feels like the beginning of a civil war not just within our country, but even within our state, where you have an entire section of the state that is completely dependent upon, and they say it. I'm not the one saying it, but they are the ones saying they are completely dependent upon an illegal workforce. Because if their workforce is here on those H-2 visas, or whatever they're called, H-1B, H-2A, whatever these visas are, they're not illegal. They're here legally. If they're here through some other program, they're here legally. Those aren't the ones you're going after. But they keep fighting on the terms that say we are going to get rid of illegal immigration. And why are they fighting so hard? Why are they fighting so hard to break the law? They think that they are above the law. Nope. Everybody else should abide by the law except for me. And then you have these people on the floor of the House saying these things, and we're going to show them to you. But first, let's set the stage first. Let's set the stage first here because we need to do that. What is the stage? The stage starts with Representative Kyle Harris. We've shown this clip before. Representative Kyle Harris asking the Dairymen's Association lobbyist if they knowingly hire illegals. Let's watch this.
Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Narabal. So while we're sitting in limbo waiting for the federal government to act, and arguably this bill doesn't have anything to do with immigration, it just has to do with enforcing laws in this country that we have that prevent you from hiring illegal immigrants. So while we're waiting in limbo for the federal government to do something, are we supposed to continue to allow people like the dairy industry to just flagrantly break the law?
Mr. Narabal.
Chairman Wheeler, Representative Harris. First, I'd like to correct the record that our dairymen do not flagrantly break the law. We complete I-9 forms just like every other employer, and we don't believe it should be on the employer to verify legal status of an individual in country. That should fall on the government, not an employer. Secondly, I would point towards in the transcript of the interview I referred to with President Trump, he was bluntly asked the question, do you feel like ag workers and those in critical industries should remain in country, and have you asked your agencies to limit their enforcement? And he bluntly answered, yes, I have. So I would suggest we follow President Trump's lead, allow him the space to work on this, and allow there to be a federal fix come forward.
Follow up.
Follow up, Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does the dairy, ag, any construction industry across the state in Idaho, but speaking to dairy specifically because that's who you represent, do they knowingly employ illegal immigrants in the state of Idaho?
Mr. Narabal.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris, no, we do not knowingly hire undocumented or unauthorized individuals in the state.
Ooh, we don't knowingly do it. We don't knowingly do it. We take their forms and then we put them inside, we put them in the file, and we keep it there. But we don't knowingly do it. We don't knowingly because then we couldn't be able to hire them, right? So because our industry is propped up by this, we're going to not knowingly hire them. So we don't knowingly hire them. Folks, according to a new report, the Department of Homeland Security appears to be stepping in and taking a more aggressive role in investigating illegal employment inside the United States. So it sounds to me like the Trump administration, Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security, they figured out a way. Mr. Lobbyist, dairyman lobbyist. His father was also a lobbyist, and I'd like to remind you of what his remarks were and what he revealed during a committee hearing 2 years ago.
North, and he made a statement, and the statement was that 90% of the labor force in Idaho was on dairies was not legal, which obviously I've given you that 90% number. There was an AP reporter in that room, and I got a call almost instantly. And he says, will you confirm what Senator or Congressman Labrador just said? And you take a breath, and you have told Congressman Labrador all the facts. And I said, well, I think his numbers are a little high. I'll put it at 70%. And that's what I'll tell you. I think it's about 70% based on the data we have.
70%. 70% would fail an I-9 audit. That means that when they turned in their I-9 form and they had all their documents there, that the employer then said, thank you for your documents, thank you for all this, we're going to put it in a file, you can go to work. That if the feds came in and said, we want to check through your I-9 forms, and they would give them to them, 70% of those I-9 forms, they would fail. And those people would have to either prove who they are or leave to get deported or go through the process. So yeah, I don't knowingly do it. I just take the form and then put it away and tell them to go to work. You know, when I used to have to, and I've only had several jobs where I had to prove or had to fill out I-9 forms throughout my life. I mean, you do it every time you get a new job. It's such a pain in the butt because you gotta find your ID, you gotta find your birth certificate, you gotta find like a bill, like your utility bill, or you got to find some sort of something that kind of proves that you've been here or that you were born here, and you got to get all those documents together. And you got to bring them in. They take photocopies of it and they just shove it in a drawer and stuff. And you're just kind of like, man, you know, I mean, and I'm a citizen, right? But when you're not, and you have to find these documents, you have to go through. And we I don't know if we're going to hear this clip, but we had people say like, an E-Verify number is worth so much more if you get an E-Verify number. So all we're doing if we install E-Verify is we're gonna raise the rates of the black market of all these documents that are out on the black market. It's ridiculous. Okay, I'm gonna pile on here because here we have the construction lobby, the construction lobbyist Stephen Martinez, talk about who gets hired in the construction world. Watch this.
Affordable housing at every level. One of the components to affordability is the labor input that we put into the homes. About a third of our workforce is foreign born. Now, foreign born could be here legally, illegally, temporarily. It could be, you know, anybody that's here that was not obviously born of this country. And so when I talk about foreign born labor, it's a broad spectrum.
It's so broad, Steve. Thank you for being forward. I mean, these are the guys. At least they're honest. A third of the construction industry is made up of foreign born, which includes people who are here illegally. He said it, not me. He said it, not me. A third of the foreign born, a third of the workers are foreign born. It's probably way higher than that. But a third are foreign born, and it's made up of illegals. So that, to me, is knowingly hiring illegals. I mean, that's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. The Farm Bureau. Let's listen to Mr. Miller at the Farm Bureau.
And speaking for my organization, in every industry, you're going to have a series of bad actors. And we don't speak for them, and we don't represent them, and we don't condone them. But what we know by and large is if you go to any one of our farms and you were to look, you would see I-9 forms on every employee that came through the door. You would see proper documentation. There's too many risks on the line for the farmers to run that type of a risk generally. The challenge is you're a farmer and you're not legally allowed. If you're given documentation, you're not legally allowed to challenge that. In fact, there was a lawsuit years ago in which an employer did that very thing, and they lost and had to pay significant fines for violating civil rights.
Okay. So then you should be all for E-Verify. If you're not allowed, if an employer is not allowed to check the validity of the paperwork, they're just there to accept it, then this has been a scam since the beginning. The I-9 form has been a scam since the beginning, obviously. When was an I-9 form? Can producer, can we see when the I-9 form was first introduced into the whole process here? Because if it's just a form that you're filling out, what's the point if you can't challenge it? So you should actually be happy. You should actually be happy that we're trying to get E-Verify passed, so that way you can know exactly who you're hiring. And Mr. Miller says he doesn't represent the bad actors. You're always going to have bad actors who are hiring illegals. But there's no so let's get them. Let's get them. The federal I-9 form, here we go. Great job, guys. The federal form I-9 was created as a result of the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. Of course, it was all part of the whole amnesty, Reagan, and all that, right? But so what they said is that we're going to fill. So this is how. So I love this. I love this, folks. This is 86. So we're talking 40 years. For 40 years, folks, we've been collecting a form that you're not allowed to check. This was the grand bargain, as they called it back in the day. This was Reagan's idea. I'm a Reagan Republican. Reagan was the greatest ever. Look, I love Ronald Reagan. I love Ronald Reagan, foreign policy, his charisma, his passion for life, his passion for children and families. Absolutely. But if you can't tell me that he wasn't doing what all of this entire industry has been propped up by illegal workers. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, y'all. The chickens are coming home to roost. An I-9 form was created for 40 years ago, and employers are not allowed to verify it. Only the feds can come in when they're doing an audit. That's it. That's it. And this entire industry has been propped up by that. So now we have some legislators on the floor fighting against this. They're supposed to be fighting for you, yet they stand up and they fight for illegal workers. That's what's happening. Let's bring in Brian Allman here because I want to get his perspective so far on this. Good morning, Brian. I know you just learned of this article that came out and the news that the DHS is gonna be taking over where the IRS should have been doing. First off, what's your reaction on that? And then we'll get into some of the legislators here. But I want your reaction on that, and I want your reaction on a lot of these lobbyists and what they've been confessing.
Well, good morning, Matt. A lot of what I have to say you've already said, so I don't want to, just repeat those things.
Repetition is necessary in this.
Yeah, thinking about what the Trump administration is doing. When we think of mass deportations and enforcing the immigration law, we tend to think of like what happened in Minneapolis last month, where they're going in there in force and arresting people and fighting the protesters. That's a component of it, but there's so many other things that the Trump administration can do and is doing. Shut off the things that make illegal aliens want to come here. Shut off the things that allow them to come here. Closing the border, that was a huge thing. Shut off the source. But then you have people who still make it across, or people who overstay their visas. You have methods by which they work under the table or work with fraudulent documentation. And so, got to shut that down. They have employers who are willing to hire them and look the other way and say, well, we can't check their documentation because, they got a piece of paper that says they should be here. And, doing E-Verify, which takes all of 5 seconds, that's too hard. So we're not going to do that. So, shut that down. Shut down that magnet that allows them to come and work. Shut down public benefits. The Democrats do this thing where they say that illegal aliens are not getting public benefits because they're not eligible, but then they turn around and say that it's cruel to shut off these public benefits. Well,
exactly.
Shut off those benefits. And then, finally go use the existing systems to go find people who should not be here, people who have stolen other people's identities. People call this like a victimless crime, that they're just coming here to, for a better life. But in order to do that, they're committing all sorts of crimes. Senator Brian Lenny has, he'll repost this occasionally on his X account, where he lists off all the crimes that illegal aliens commit on their way here. Falsifying documentation, stealing people's identities. They could be stealing your identity or your children's identity in order to, get access to, to be able to work in America and get that money and send it back home. So there's so many things, and I'm glad to see the Trump administration is doing those things.
Yes, I am too. It's about time, and these folks, be careful what you wish for. Let's go to the floor. This was on Friday as the House debated two bills, House Bill 700 and House Bill 704. This was a mandatory E-Verify bill, along with an enforcement bill that would say if you knowingly hire an illegal alien, you're gonna be penalized. Let's watch some of the, I might cut in a couple times here just to get some reactions here, but let's listen to Representative Pickett talk through some of this here on House Bill 704.
Members of the body, this is an important moment in our state's history. The question is framed in the context of the Biden administration, when in reality, we haven't had comprehensive immigration reform in this country for at least 40 years, since 1986. In the meantime, our economy has grown to the point where we've come to depend. Now, I'll note the fiscal note says no impact. That glares at me off the page when I read that. In the context of where I come from. I come from Cassia County. Cassia County is the #1 county in this state in agricultural production, and a state that ranks in the top 5 in the country. Number 5 in the country for ag production. And as the economy has grown over these past 40 years, we have had a sustained shortage of labor in many industries, not just agriculture, but in many industries. And our unemployment rate currently in the state sits at about 3.5%. Anybody with an economic background will tell you that the economy and our labor supply is at full employment. So if this is to have no impact, and if those jobs, up to 28,000 jobs, are going to go away, how do we define that? How do we understand that? It's contemplated that this could affect possibly 28,000 jobs in the state of Idaho, and we're saying there's no fiscal impact? In Twin Falls County, Chobani is just in the process of $1 billion expansion to their plant, creating 400 new jobs. Do you realize the kind of uncertainty we're sending to the business community and to our economy?
Pause it there.
The question is framed.
Brian. So Chobani, knowing, I'm positive they know what's going on. Chobani still decides to build to expand so that they can hire 400 more people in a state that apparently has almost zero unemployment. So everybody's working, and the only place that they can go recruit is out of the country, not out of the state. You know, I want to get your reaction on this stuff so far, but I have to digress just a little bit. I remember when there was an energy boom in North Dakota, and people were flocking from all over the country to go to North Dakota to be an oil rigger or a natural gas guy, and like people were getting paid like six figures to go do that. So don't tell me that we can't get people from all over the country to come for these 400 jobs at a yogurt factory.
Where do I even start with that? I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, and it really speaks to the broader point of how the market works. You know, labor is a market just like anything else, and as conservatives, we generally believe in a free market. However, I think, you know, over the past 50 years or so, Republicans especially, but also Democrats actually, have gone a little too far there and talked about taking down trade barriers throughout the entire world. Free market, open markets, free trade, and that's going to bring peace and prosperity to everyone. That was the debate over NAFTA in the 1990s. I'm old enough to remember that, where both President Bush and President Clinton were supporting free trade between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, whereas you had guys like Pat Buchanan and Ross Perot were saying, hey, this is not a good idea. All those jobs in America, there's going to be that giant sucking sound. They all go down to Mexico, where labor is cheaper and you don't have as many regulations as well. And that's the dirty truth about free movement of labor, of free trade of labor, is that if you want to build a factory here in Idaho, but you don't want to pay the wages that the market in Idaho demands, well, we'll just go import workers from some other country where, you know, back home they'd be, you know, making perhaps pennies on the dollar. We'll give them a little more than that, but less than what we'd have to pay Idahoans or other Americans who would move to Idaho for that job. And I guess our consolation is that we get, you know, slightly less expensive yogurt, but to what end? And you know, what are the other costs that are going to be associated with that? You know, more and more people coming to our country who are not assimilating into our culture, more burdens on our welfare system, our healthcare system, the housing market, and then you end up with entire industries that they just get so used to. The flag bill just passed. So used to a certain method, like, you know, okay, this industry only hires refugees. This industry only hires migrant workers from south of the border. And then people are locked out of those industries. You know, young Americans, you know, teenagers, you know, young adults who want to get a start in, you know, get a job, to learn skills and make some money. They're increasing, you know, the jobs they can have are increasingly narrowed because they're blocked off. If you know, Representative Mickelson said we need a supply of foreign labor so she doesn't have to wait 45 minutes at the Taco Bell or the McDonald's, does that mean we can't have young Americans going to work at Taco Bell or McDonald's anymore because those jobs are reserved for you know, for people on migrant visas? Where does it end?
It ends when we say it ends, and that's what we need out there, people. We need these bills to pass. We need to put these people on the back heels. Throw up the QR code. Let's have that QR code up in the corner, folks. House Bill 704 is on the Senate side now, and it needs to have a hearing. So we need to make sure that we are rallying folks to email the Senate State Affairs Committee, and you can do that by scanning that QR code on your phone and sending it and firing an email off. We need them to hear that. Yeah, as you just mentioned in breaking news, the flag bill, the amended flag bill has made its way through the House, and we'll head over to the Senate for some more debate. So we'll keep tabs on that. I've kind of lost my patience with that thing. So good job.
Yeah, when you say that people don't know what time it is, I think I support this flag bill. I support trying to fight against woke officials like Mayor McLean who are trying to claim territory for this culture war. But I think the immigration issue, and that's why I get so passionate about it, is it really is existential for the future of America, of Idaho, of our society. America has always welcomed immigrants, and that's not going to change. People from, we started as basically English and, some Scotch Irish, some, German immigrants, then started bringing in people from, Italy and, Russia and Eastern Europe. And, then folks from East Asia and people from, south of the border, Mexico, Central America, Latin America, essentially have always been a part of the culture of the Southwest. So it's not necessarily saying that, it's about certain cultures or certain ethnicities. It's that the last 50, 60 years have seen a mass migration of people from all over the world that instead of assimilating like, immigrants to America once did, it's almost like you're carving out ethnic enclaves. And I don't think that's good for the cohesiveness of our society going forward. So I think it's a more existential question.
It is, and when you create a shadow society like what these employers are doing, it only encourages them to not assimilate. Because in order to assimilate, like the early immigrants did, is that they became citizens, and they came here legally, and they became citizens, and they wanted to assimilate. If you come here illegally, you don't want any attention on you. You want to hide out in your little enclaves and your little communities. You cannot assimilate. Your kids end up assimilating, right? Because we had the law that I don't know if Trump is trying to get rid of, the anchor baby law, where you come over here and your baby is born here and they become an American, which seems ridiculous, especially if you're not assimilating. Okay, let's get back on track here. The House did adjourn. I believe the Senate did adjourn. Programming note, we expect hopefully to have Senator Christy Zitto on here in about 15 minutes to talk through the Stand Your Ground bill. But I want to get through this stuff because I'm not letting these guys off the hook. Representative, do we need to, I feel like let's play the other Pickett clip. Let's see what else Representative Pickett was talking about.
Members of the body, this is the bill where not only do we abdicate our responsibility as government to the private sector, but we criminalize them if they don't. It was interesting, I heard testimony in committee about this bill stating something to the long lines of that since the businesses were the ones that created this situation, that they should be responsible for fixing it. So if you go out and you live the American dream and you enterprise and you risk your capital, your name and your reputation, and you create jobs, and as you hire people that come in with documents and you document that and you certify that and you move forward, that you could potentially be held responsible for a criminal act.
Wait, good. Brian, I'm sorry. Did he say you certify it? This guy is, this is where I'm taught. This is where I'm like, am I allowed to call him a liar now? He seems to be dancing around stuff. We've been entrepreneurs. You've worked hard. You put all your capital. You've done all this stuff, and you bring in people. You check their documents. You certify it, and now you're being penalized. I'm sorry, you're not being penalized if you are the one hiring legal workers.
Right, and that's the thing about 700 and 704 is that they work together. You have 704, which says employers have to use E-Verify. And remember, they're already taking the I-9 form. So they're already required since 1986 to have prospective employers fill out this form saying, yes, I am a citizen. Here's my, here's how you know that. And all the E-Verify would do, all House Bill 704 would do is say, okay, we'll just check that against a federal database.
Yes.
And yeah, there's going to be some issues there occasionally where people have defrauded the federal database as well. But, and this is the great part about it, 700 comes along and says you're held accountable unless you use E-Verify. If you use E-Verify and it turns out it was wrong and you actually hired an illegal alien, well, it's the federal government's fault because they need to be maintaining their data. You did your due diligence.
Right.
I don't understand why these companies and lobbyists and representatives from, who are listening to them don't get that. Why don't they want to shift the liability over to the federal government?
Because they've been riding fat on the hog for so long. I mean, it's the only reason why. It's the only reason I can think of. They've just been riding fat on the hog for so long, and they want to protect their treasure. It's embarrassing. It's actually shameful. That was an embarrassing minute of debate that Pickett had. I am embarrassed for him. Play Jack Nelson, another embarrassing figure. Watch this clown.
I'd like to reaffirm what the previous good representative just said, is give our president some time to address this and come to grips with it. I would also add a few things to flesh things out. I'm retired, but I've been a lifelong dairyman. Some of the data you've been given here is that it made absolutely no difference in Arizona. Just to flesh out a little bit of the previous debate is Arizona might be up 3% in milk production. It depends on which year you pick. Texas and Idaho are up 30-some%. And there's a really good reason for that. That's simply the availability of labor. The other two things that haven't been said here, and one, it's not the state's financial thing, but frankly, if you look at this from the cartel's perspective, whether it's a fake Social Security card or a fake E-Verify number that actually works, fake E-Verify numbers cost somewhere on the street about 10 times as much as a fake Social Security card. So from just a financial standpoint, I pretty much assume the cartels would love us to pass this because that's called a market. The other one is more an insight to the effect of a labor supply has on this country. And it's not a fiscal note on this one. It's a fiscal note for our entire state. I guess it's been closer to 45 years ago now, I went to one of the first seminars from the INS. Our family reported with no Social Security card, we withheld and sent in Social Security FICA payments to a 00 number. The agent who conducted that seminar said right now they had a fake Social Security card in a wallet. And this is 45 years ago. I can assure to you that right now we have 500,000 people paying in to that Social Security number. So behind the economic impact of what was just said here is also we have millions of people in this country that are paying into our Social Security system. And I don't think anybody in this body would disagree that Social Security financially is pretty broken. But if you pull out millions of people who are paying in and never going to get the benefits back, it's broken a whole lot more.
Brian, this clown, 3 points here. We got to go over these 3 points. This is incredible what he just said. First of all, he says, Arizona, which instituted E-Verify, they've increased their, get rid of this clown off the screen. He said Arizona's milk level production is up 3%, but Idaho's is up 30%. Is that because we use illegal labor, Brian?
I guess that's the point he's trying to make. I don't know.
I mean, what a clown. And then his second point saying you can either get a fake Social Security card from a coyote or from a whatever you want to call it, from the cartel, or you get a fake E-Verify number. What's an E-Verify number?
I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe they have some method of defrauding that system, like I mentioned before. But the argument that
when you go to real quick, Brian, when you fill out your I-9 form, that's what gets E-Verified. You send in the I-9 form. So what is this E-Verify number? I don't understand, but go ahead.
Yeah, I find it pretty crazy to be arguing that increasing the cost of breaking the law is bad. We want to increase the cost of breaking the law. We want to make it harder for people to break the law.
Yes.
Okay, the cartels might charge more to try and get their illegal aliens through. That's good. We want to raise that barrier as high as possible. We don't want to make it easier for people to break the law.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this guy's a clown. And then the last point is, oh, well, we've been paying Social Security payments under a 00 number, a fake number, for 40 years. People have been paying into this thing, and that's just going to bankrupt Social Security if we get rid of that. Well, once again, if illegal aliens are paying Social Security payments, do you think they're dumb enough to be paying Social Security without expecting that they're going to get Social Security payments later for somebody in their family or for them? Like, please.
If you're defrauding it on one end, you're going to try and defraud it on the other too. But look at what we're seeing here. We're seeing somebody who's a little older, perhaps nearing retirement age himself, saying we need illegal aliens to be paying Social Security so that I will get my Social Security payments.
Right.
It has nothing to do with community. It has nothing to do with posterity. It has nothing to do with the future of our state. It says, we need to keep breaking the law so that I can, get my check.
He's an absolute clown. An absolute clown. And that is the thing here. We've been doing this for 40 years. They have been riding high on this for 40 years, collecting information on an I-9 form. Like, I want to go back to my first employer, if they're even still around, and say, hey, do you have my I-9 form? What'd you ever do with any of that? Where did all that stuff go? What do you guys do with it? It's like, it's performative. It's nothing. It's theater. It's immigration enforcement theater for the last 40 years. Thank you, Reagan administration. Thank you, all of the folks back then. It was pure theater. And you wonder why. You wonder why we get pissed off later on, 20, 30 years later, when we look back and we say, oh, great. We talk about the war that's going on in Iran and why should we be there? Should we not be there? Remember at the time in 2003 when we invaded Iraq, it was like, oh yes, weapons of mass destruction. We got to go in there and stop Saddam Hussein and his weapons of mass destruction. And now 25 years later after that, we're like, well, that was BS. They lied to us there. So I don't care. It's a uniparty. It's all a uniparty. And they put up their guy, and who knows, Trump may be part of the uniparty too. That's why right here in the state, this is the only place where we can control exactly what's happening. God bless Heather Scott and Judy Boyle for getting that state sovereignty bill passed that we were talking about earlier today, or we were watching before the show started. I mean, it's incredible, Brian. I'm absolutely gobsmacked by the level of hubris and no shame that these people have in talking about both sides of their mouth. We don't knowingly hire illegals. Oh my God, if you pass a law that tells us we can't hire illegals, the whole shebang crumbles.
Yeah. I can maybe grade President Reagan on a curve here, saying, okay, we've got this issue. Let's figure out how to solve it. There's only, there's less than 10 million illegals in the country. I don't know how many there were in 1986. Well, fine, let them stay. And then we'll put in this tough enforcement going forward. Okay. Now, 40 years later, we can see that was a hoodwink. Perhaps the people who were negotiating there never intended to actually, enforce anything. Okay, now we get the same talk where you get people saying, well, we'll send this joint memorial to Congress and ask them to do comprehensive immigration reform. I think Representative Pickett even used that phrase, comprehensive immigration reform. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We need amnesty for those people who are here and already working. We need to give them green cards. We need to expand the H-2A visa program. And then we'll enforce things better going forward. Well, okay, we've heard this song before at this point, and we'd be foolish to, it's the boy who cried wolf at this point.
It is, and thank God for media outlets like Revolver, X. All of the things that you could also curse on a daily basis, social media. But the word is getting out. We're not falling for this garbage anymore. I want to play one more testimony or one more floor debate. This is from Representative Steve Miller. We'll slog away through this a little bit because the man speaks a little bit slower than most. Sorry, I'm being rude here. Let's listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate against.
Gentleman has the floor.
To debate against the law.
I think it's part of this whole debate is I think we're talking about two different populations. I think one population we're talking about has been here for 10, 15, 20 years and is integrated into the culture as much as they can within the federal allowances and federal law that we have to deal with. I think there's another population that was referred to earlier that's come here in the last 2 or 3 years, which is the vast majority of the problems that we have with that people group.
Pause,
And
pause. Brian, 10 years ago, they would have said the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the people that came in just now are the big problem, not the ones that were here 10 years ago. And then 10 years before that, it was the people that came in just now, not the ones that came in 10 years ago when Reagan granted amnesty to everybody. What?
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and what he's essentially saying there is, that this could be a problem for those, these employers whose workforces might disappear overnight. But consider that the E-Verify bill would only require E-Verify going forward. You don't have to go back and check your existing employees. Maybe it should, but it doesn't, which means those who are already there, who've perhaps gotten fraudulent identification, they could continue working. But the worry, I don't remember if it was Representative Miller or one of the other ones during the testimony, says the worry is that they'll be scared away and they'll go work in other states that don't have E-Verify. And of course, my answer to that is, okay, great. Let's start replacing the illegal workforce with a legal workforce.
Yes.
Whether that, maybe there has to be some sort of transition where you still need to have migrant workers, and there are existing programs for that, even though the industry says it's not good enough. Or maybe like, your Citizens Alliance had, maybe we can start actually reaching out to Americans. Whenever there's this industry, whichever industry, and they look at their demographics and say, well, we don't have enough women working in our industry, or we don't have enough minorities, or whatever. They always say, okay, well, we need to do outreach. We need to try and get those people to come in to have a more diverse workforce. Well, if your industry is entirely based on migrant labor, why don't you do some outreach to Americans instead of just saying, well, it's jobs Americans won't do? Well, figure out why. Maybe you need to charge a little bit more. Maybe avocados will be a little more expensive at the grocery store, but you'll be investing in the future of the country. Hire young people, hire people, give them their first job working on the farm, and make that attractive instead of just saying, well, it's these jobs are too good for Americans.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to go.
Yeah, and I also don't buy the fact that they're going to have to raise prices over there. I think it's all going to level out eventually. Is milk way more expensive in Arizona than it is here? Like, who knows? Like we'll have to research that. But the whole point is that everything will fluctuate and everything will even out. I want to finish Representative Miller's statement here, but I'm afraid we're running out of time. We're going to pick this up. I'm not letting this stuff go. Brian. This has been way too much. And the lies, and I'm going to call them lies because I think they're lying. I just think they're lying. How can you say on one hand you don't knowingly hire illegals, and then on the other hand say, but if you implement E-Verify, we're going to lose half our workforce and the entire industry will collapse? I just don't see it. Brian, where can people follow you and keep tabs on your work?
X.com at Brian Allman, GemStateChronicle.com. I'll keep working and I'll keep focusing on this as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. We will see you back next time. Folks, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, Senator Christy Zitto will join us to talk about a very important issue. Aside from the immigration, this is all about self-defense. It's all about standing your ground. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with Senator Zitto right after this.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among a world silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
All right, folks, welcome back. Matt Edwards here. It is the 5th of March, and that means it's been just over 2 weeks, maybe 3 now, since Senate Bill 1298 was first introduced into the Senate side by Senator Christy Zito. Senator Zito joins us now. Senator, it's nice to see you. I like to call you the godmother of our Second Amendment here in Idaho, and so I'm not surprised to see this bill come in that basically helps shore up the people's rights when it comes to self-defense and protecting your home and protecting your loved ones. What can you tell me now about where we'll get into the bill in a moment, but where can you tell me where this sits right now? Do we expect to have a hearing soon?
Well, we're working really hard to get a hearing on it. Right now, the bill sits with Senator Guthrie in the State Affairs Committee, and he told me specifically if I could get the committee members to agree that we could advance this bill into a full hearing and then possibly onto the floor. So we're working the committee members really hard. And if this is important to you, call the members of the Senate State Affairs Committee and let them know it's important to you as well. I can give you their names if you want.
Yeah, no, we'll post a whole list
Okay,
up there.
perfect.
Yeah, because we've been, as you know, the immigration bills that crossed over from the House are sitting over there as well. So they're hearing from a lot of folks on many different things. And you're no stranger to this. You know that committee there is one of the tougher ones to get good conservative legislation through. So talk to us a little bit about this bill and the importance of it. I heard it mentioned once that it was similar to the anti-SLAPP legislation that protects free speech and frivolous lawsuits against folks who are doing free speech. How can you equate the two here with what this bill does?
Well, what it does is it provides so that if you have to use deadly force to defend yourself, or your home or your family or those around you, per Idaho code, it doesn't change any part of that in Idaho code. It's a procedural change is basically what it is. So what it will do is it will make it so that, if you legally defend yourself, then it changes like pre-trial hearing and stuff like that. So before in Idaho right now, self-defense claim can be used, but it typically happens later in the trial. And so that costs you money, it costs the prosecutors money, it costs the county or the state money. So what we're saying is if the person who is being charged can present prima facie evidence, meaning, at first look evidence that they did indeed use self-defense, then it's up to the prosecuting attorney or the investigators or whoever is, sheriff's department or whatever, to say, no, we have evidence that would show that you did not use self-defense. And then the trial can proceed. And we're asking that this take place in 14 days. If they can't get it done in 14 days, then they can get an extension. I think it provides for 2 extensions so that the job can be done and done well. But the point is that before you go to trial, before all the money is spent by all parties involved, we have a little bit better idea of was it really self-defense or was it really not self-defense? And so then it can proceed. And then if you go all through the trial and it's found that you were not guilty, then there's provision for reimbursement for your costs. Because, we haven't had a specific episode like this in Idaho, but we did watch the Kyle Rittenhouse trial right there live on TV. We saw it happen and he was still charged, drugged through the courts for, I can't even remember how long now, millions of dollars. And that should never happen, especially in Idaho. You shouldn't have to think if you are in that horrible position where you have to use deadly force, do I protect my family or do I not? Because will it cost me my family in the end? That should never be a consideration. Right. You should know in Idaho that if you are in that horrible position, that you are protected by Idaho code.
Well, let me ask you this. So is because I've seen it, not necessarily in Idaho. I don't know where I've seen it. I can't tell you the state that I've seen it, but I've heard stories, news stories, where somebody does protect themselves in self-defense, and right away the prosecutor or the sheriff or law enforcement, like, they don't arrest right away because it was clear at the scene of the moment that it was clearly self-defense. Is that something that's threatened now, or is that familiar to you? Does that happen now? Does that sort of discretion not happen in Idaho currently?
Well, we've not had a deadly force case like that, but last summer we did have a situation where a young man did bring his firearm to an event, and then he was charged with 2 felony counts. And I should have reviewed that so I could have told you what they were. But he did go to trial, and I was in the pretrial hearing, and I was there when a woman walked up to the witness stand and sat down, and she was asked, did he have a gun? And she said yes. And she was asked, well, what kind of a gun was it? And she said, I don't know, but it was scary, and it had a green dot. And so that was enough for the trial.
That was enough to arrest him?
That was enough for the trial to proceed.
Oh, wow.
So it cost him and his young family, pregnant wife, little kids, young little kids. This guy's a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, several high-risk saves in the state of Idaho, former law enforcement, active duty. In fact, he had just came home from work out at the base, and $30,000 later,
wow,
the charges were dropped. And
wow,
even though it wasn't deadly force in that situation, it happens. And I'm sure it will happen more and more and more. And we don't cover that with this legislation. So once we get this through, that could be the next step for us to go, because you just should never have to worry. And, where it's serious is that, and the Second Amendment is, like all of our rights, it's a constitutionally protected right given to us from God, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. The founders didn't qualify it. And so it's our job to make sure that is protected and that you do have that right. Now, does that mean that law enforcement can arrest someone if they're there or there's exigent circumstances or evidence that it was not, even though someone's claiming it? Of course they can.
Right.
That's
that was going to be my next question. So this doesn't stop the officer, and it doesn't put the officer or the department at risk if they do arrest somebody at the time of the incident, because they're not going to be held liable for wrongful arrest, right?
No, because
Okay.
the evidence has to be there.
Right.
So really it protects everybody. It protects the person who used deadly force. It protects law enforcement. It saves everybody money. And whether, prosecuting attorneys will tell you, oh, we can't do that, because of the cost and this and that, what it would cost us if we had to provide restitution. It's all about all of us doing our job right at the beginning to protect the rights of our citizens. Now, I'm getting a little older. And when I was in school, a lot of my teachers were like World War II veterans and stuff like that, Korean conflict vets and everything. And I'll never forget, it wasn't a civics or history teacher, but my science teacher, Mr. Josephson, told us in class one day, and I'm not even sure how we got on the subject, but he said, our entire judicial system and our system of freedom is set up so that if 10 guilty men go free to preserve the constitutional rights of one man, we've been successful. And, that's what it's all about is protecting that right. But this does not tie the hands of law enforcement. It does not tie the hands of a prosecuting attorney. It just ensures that the evidence is there, that we're on a good, strong, solid foundation when these cases are pursued in court.
Yeah, as we
not
should be.
down the road after everybody spent a bunch of money, but up front. That's
Right.
For me, that is the main protection that it offers.
So is the main opposition to this folks in the prosecuting attorney's office? Where would be the pushback here that would cause maybe the chairman or some senators to be apprehensive to even have a hearing about this bill? Like where is the pressure coming from?
Well, we've worked on this. I've been in the legislature 8 years I've served, and then 2 years I lobbied for the gun, for gun stuff. And so, we've heard it all. prosecuting attorneys. Treg Burnt is on the State Affairs Committee, and I've taken an information packet around with a ton of stuff to each one of the members of the State Affairs Committee. And Senator Burnt said no. He said, my law enforcement friends don't like it. So, I'm going to say no. And again, I don't know why. And I'm not 100% sure how this all works. Now, when we worked on constitutional carry, I was at 17 or 18 when we finally got it through. It took several years to get the process so that we had constitutional carry. And I would go places, and the on the street law enforcement would come up to me and they would say, we are behind this 100%. We fully support it. The more law abiding citizens that we have armed on the street, the safer our streets are. But then the official law enforcement agencies were never on board or would oppose it. So I'm not sure if he's talking to his friends or if this is an FOP thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have Sheriff Larry Kendrick in Owyhee County and Sheriff Mike Hollenshed in Elmore County. They've been supportive of it. They, not on an official level, but they are very supportive of it.
Yeah, and that I think that was going to be my next question. Are there other law enforcement folks out there that are supportive of it? And I can't imagine they're not, because there's a lot of good folks out there that are all for the Second Amendment or all for protecting people's rights, especially in a self-defense situation. I can't imagine defending your family from something and having to use deadly force and then being tried and convicted for it, or being dragged through the courts on your own dime because of something that's your right. So I bless you, Chrissy, on this. I hope you continue forward. We're going to put the call out here to make sure that people contact the committee and contact all of the senators on there so that we can have a hearing. Real quick, here's the email for the whole committee is right there on the bottom of the screen. So if you want to fire off an email on your own, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we'll set up an easy way for folks to do that. Senator Zito,
them individually.
Yes.
I don't know if you know my story, Matt, but I didn't have to use deadly force, but I was in a position to defend my daughter. And, it's a grave decision you have to make. It's when you make that commitment that you would pull that trigger, just that in itself is traumatizing.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine having to live with that you actually were in a position where you had to, and then to have to face all of this afterwards is just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, we need to do more. This is very important. I thank you, Christy, so much. Where can people follow you and keep track of this bill and the rest of your work?
Well, I have a Facebook page, but then I do a Substack. And I try to do at least a weekly update on my Substack, let you know where we are on legislation, what we're working on, what's important to us. And then the Gang of Eight does a weekly Substack also, to kind of let everybody know what's going through the committees and stuff like that. You can always private message me or text me or call me. I try to be responsive. This time of the year, it gets a little, frazzled, a little hurried. But,
yeah. Well.
But either way, because, I want you to know, and I want your opinion, and because it's important to me to represent your voice, not just what I think is right, and to follow the Constitution, and who does it help, who does it hurt, type of thing.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll check back in. Hopefully this gets a hearing, and we'll make sure we cover that as well. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, and God bless. Thank you.
God bless you. Yeah. All right, folks. Yeah, very important to keep tabs on this stuff as we move forward here. It's extremely, extremely important. A lot of people out there don't know what time it is. They do not know what time it is, but we know Senator Zito does. Folks, getting back to the Senate State Affairs Committee, this is where this is ground zero. The Senate State Affairs Committee. We need them to hear these immigration bills. We need them to hear the stand your ground bill here, and this is what we do. And she said it's very important to contact them individually. Right here, right now, for the illegal workforce bills, if you scan the QR code or you hit that link, you will it'll fire off an email to the whole committee. But we'll also make sure that you know a way to find the folks online where you can send them an email for the folks that are in that committee. It's very important we do this, folks. Very important. The bills here are H700 and H704, mandatory E-Verify, and then if you knowingly hire illegal aliens, you're going to be held accountable. especially because the DHS said they're coming to town. They're coming to town, folks. Do we have that tip line? What's the tip line? Do we know that? Did you guys find that? If you know, if you can't get in trouble for knowingly knowing, but if you happen to know of a business that is employing illegal aliens, that's the number to call. 1-866-DHS-2-ICE. If you suspect that there's activity going on at a workforce, at a workplace, whether it's construction, whether it's hospitality, whether it's who knows, right? All over the place. The DHS will join you. So, all right, folks, that's it. I thank everybody for joining us today. If you want to give us a call and leave us your message, 208-402-4915 is the message to call. Leave a voicemail. We'll play it on the air. Leave your name and town so we know where you're calling from. And if you are also listening out there on your earphones, your headphones, whatever you call them, AirPods, whatever it is, and you want to save on your data and listen to the program, Idaho Signal.live, streaming 24/7. Our YouTube channel's blown up. We're less than 100 subscribers away from 8,000. So let's hit that 8,000 mark before tomorrow. Come on, folks. Share the broadcast, share the program, share it around, and let's get everybody on board. We ride together, folks. We ride together. And if you're looking for a great way to spruce up your meal without having to fire up the old smoker, American Smoke Co. The American Smoke Company makes these fantastic smoked salts. They use Pacific Ocean sea salt, very coarse grain. They smoke it with your favorite woods, some of the most aromatic smelling salts you've ever, it's not smelling salts, but smoked salts that you've ever had. You throw them on your eggs, your veggies, throw them on some hamburger patties, and fire up that grill, and you'll have that delicious flavor. All right, folks, we will see you tomorrow for the Friday show. For all you folks out there, I know you know what time it is, but we're going to keep this song going out. You can find it. You can find the music video on my X account. Check it out. We'll see you next time.
Shadows dancing in the fight I take. Wake up, you dreamers, from your slumber so deep. They don't know what time it is, and the night runs deep. So blow your horns out in the gathering storm. The old world's dying, and new one's reborn. From the ashes of riots to the bullet sharp kiss, the owl bears bleeds, and this still reminisce about the good old days of light-handed rule, while the beast devours the heart of the fool. It's later than you think, the bell starts to toll for the soul of a nation that's losing control. Looking for watch on the wrist of the age, sticking like thunder in a prophet's wage. The sons of Issachar knew the sounds of the bay. The peace-blind watchmen just turn away. It's not 68, not the raven dawn. It's like the deluge, the gloves coming off and gone. Need the wind howling, the cracks in the wall. Oh, fall with the timid when the mighty call. Oh, they don't know what time it is. The hands on the clock are spinning wild and free. Midnight's knocking, the wolves at the gate. Shadows dancing in the firelight's gate. Wake up, you dreamers, before it's too late. They don't know what time it is.
This bill, I think, puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.